Stencil art is getting bigger and bigger across the world, and it's coming back in fashion, so I'm going to try and tell you a little bit about it. Not because it's fashionable, but because I've been doing it for a long time. Right, so let's go. The first thing you want to think about is what you're going to make a stencil out of, so the material you're actually going to cut to make a stencil. There's numerous things you can use to make a stencil. It's that finding what's best for you. Normal printer paper, the nicest thing about printer paper is probably the cheapest option you can get. You can get a pack of paper for a couple of pounds, a couple of dollars. The bad side about paper is very, very flimsy. I mean, there is different grades of paper. The GSM grading, you can go for the thicker paper, which is slightly better. The normal printer paper isn't great. When you're first starting out, I would say, yep, totally go for it. When you're getting into the more detailed, like multi-layer stencils and the more detailed, especially with portraits, when you're doing a lot of fine cuts, there's a lot of thin, like bridges, what we call bridges. It hasn't got that stability to hold the stencil together. I'll go through all that in a different video. The next thing you can use is something called poster board. This is the closest thing we can get to poster boards in the UK. It's actually called True Card. It's glossy on one side, it's matte on the other side. I actually use this for painting on more than painting with, just for the fact that it doesn't cut that well. Poster board is slightly different, so don't take this as poster board. I've never actually used poster board. I know a lot of people who do. I've got a lot of Instagram friends who do use poster boards more than anything else. The nice thing about it is it's very, very stable. It's a poster board card, but if you're doing a lot of detail work, you will get a stable stencil. The thing I find about True Card, it bleeds a lot. Again, I'll go through bleeding in a different video when we get to more of kind of advanced things or of actual painting. It looks messy, it just doesn't give a clean finish of the lines and things. So I don't use this for stenciling anymore. I actually use this for painting. I use this when I do live painting. It's cheap to buy. I got a pack of 50 sheets for £3, I think it was. It is cheap to buy, and it looks good with the finish, but I wouldn't use this for stenciling. Acetate, I haven't got any acetate here because I don't use it. I have used it in the past. The thing I don't like about it is the printing side, because I print stencils, I don't draw stencils. My printer personally doesn't like printing on acetate. It will blur everything and you don't get a clean line, so actually a clean reference line. I find it a little bit brittle as well. The cutting of it, especially with again the detailed lines, it does break from time to time. For some reason I found that it actually shatter. Try and cut it and it will actually snap. So I don't use acetate. I know loads and loads of people do. It is expensive as well, so I wouldn't recommend it. The nicest thing about it is, especially when you're doing multi-layer stencils, you can see straight through where the last layer was and line it up perfectly. That's probably the biggest advantage I would say that acetate has. The thing that I personally use is this stuff. I don't know what it's called because it actually comes from a sketchbook, which I buy from a local craft store. I've used this for a long time. I don't use anything else. I mean, it's not a massive amount to buy. It's £3 for a big book like that, and you do get a lot of sheets out of it. The nicest thing about this is so easy to cut. You don't get any ripping, which you get from paper. It doesn't curl. I use this every single day of my life. I go through sheets and sheets. I've got empty packets on the floor everywhere. Sorry about the mess, by the way. I'm pretty messy. But yeah, it's basically card. I don't know the GSM rating or anything like that. It's basically a sketchbook page. That's what I use. It's up to you if you want to use something similar. Just don't go for something too thick, because the thickness of the card, if it's too thick, you won't be able to cut it properly and you won't get a clean line from it as well. Okay, so that's paper. Knives is probably the funnest part of this video. Everyone loves knives. That's a lie. The knife you use, it doesn't really matter. It's just a tool at the end of the day. I use two different types of knives. This one is a normal craft knife. I bought it from a craft store. Again, it costs very, very little. It's lasted me a long time because I think you got 3 blades with it. The blades itself, it's very, very similar to like a standing knife, because in the sense you just push it up and push it down. The blade, you just kind of chip that end off and you've got a brand new blades. It start again. I do that every 2-3 days because they get blunt pretty quickly. The thing I like about this most is a very stable blade, especially if you're doing the detail work again. You're trying to get into that, you're going in and out and in and out and in and out. I don't like a too much of a flexible blade. This is the thing with the X-Acto knives. X-Acto are a brand name. A lot of people will call any craft knife an X-Acto knife. It's completely wrong. X-Acto is a brand name. This is an X-Acto knife. You get different handles, you get different types of blade. This is the number 1 handle with the number 3 blade, I believe. I've modified it slightly so it's a little bit more comfortable. I use this for the long lines and curves and things like that. It's a slightly more flexible blade. Not great for detail work. It's actually broken as well, I just noticed. Damn. If I'm doing big scenes like the Darth Vader on the side there, the outline is very long curved. I used it for that. It's perfect for that, and you get a lovely clean line out of it as well. Don't use Stanley knives, don't use kitchen knives, don't use your mum's best steak knives. Just buy a craft knife. They're not a massive amount of money. You can even get them from the pound shop. Some people use like medical scalpels. I find that a little bit weird, but it's just entirely up to you. It's a knife at the end of the day. It's just a tool that you use, so get on it. The cutting of the stencil itself, there is some techniques to it. There's some do's and don'ts. I'm not going to sit here and cut a stencil because there is other videos about doing that, so I'm not going to bore you with that sort of thing. The main thing I'd say about the cutting the stencil itself is a sharp knife. Cut towards yourself, don't cut away from yourself because you haven't got that stability from what you're actually cutting, and take your time. What I mean by cutting towards yourself, so if I had stencil here, say if I was doing a circle, I would actually start at the top, cut say a quarter of it towards myself, move the paper around, okay? Don't go all the way around like that without moving the paper around, because the one thing, you're not going to get a circle, you're not going to get a clean cut, and you're probably going to slice through the whole thing, and that's just going to be disastrous. When you Photoshop a photo, it doesn't come out as a perfect stencil. You have to make things, I wouldn't say make things up as you go along, but you have to get those bridges and the islands right and things like that. When you're actually cutting a stencil, I've done it plenty of times, I've cut through and gone, ah, shit, that's going to fall out. Think before you cut. It's a fairly simple process, but it's just kind of the do's and don'ts of doing this sort of thing. Okay, so that's that. This video is going to be a series of videos. I mean, I've started off at the basics today. Next one will be going on to the actual layering. I'm not going to go from like single stencils. I'm going to do reviews on different types of paints. I'm going to do the different ways and the different methods of layering down, because stencil art, I think, is the most varied way that people actually do it as well. I mean, there's a lot of different techniques of actually layering the stencils down and actually holding the stencil down as well. That's going to be a completely different video of actually holding the stencil onto the canvas. There's 100 different ways of doing that. If you've liked this and you thought it was helpful, feel free to comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm going to do a video every so often, and thank you. I'm going to talk stencils. I'm going to talk to you about stenciling today.